quiet strength of the north. Some countries are defined by tall buildings, crowded streets, or grand public squares. Norway has a different atmosphere. The still surface of a fjord, the shadow of a snow-covered mountain, wooden houses darkened by rain, people who do not rush through everyday life. This is a country that is home to some of the most striking natural landscapes in the world. But trying to understand Norway only through its fjords, northern lights, and mountain roads is like reading only the cover of a book. Norway's true character lies in the rare balance it has created between the harshness of nature and the calmness of society. Norway is a wealthy country, but this wealth is not felt through display. It is felt through order, in clean streets, in a transport network that works well. In public institutions and systems that inspire trust, in the respect shown to nature. Here, prosperity feels like a strong mechanism working quietly in the background. There is a saying in these lands. They call it the law of Jante. Do not think you are better than others. What a beautiful idea, almost a way of life. And this perspective has found its way into everything, from the architecture of the cities to the way people look at one another, to how the state uses its wealth. On this cinematic 4K journey, we will explore Norway not only as a country of beautiful places, but as a northern story shaped by nature, culture, architecture, history, and human behavior. From the modern capital of Oslo to wooden churches built without nails, from the depths of the fjords to the frozen silence of the Arctic, every stop will whisper the same question. How can a country become so strong without fighting against nature? A capital built on simplicity. If you look out from the train window on the way from the airport to the city center, you see forests stretching like a straight line, orderly houses, and everything seemingly in its place. Perhaps the capital city crowd you expected is missing. So is that familiar rush of big city life. In Oslo, there is no sharp border between the city and nature. Forests begin just beside the capital. The fjord reaches into the city itself. People living here can leave work and, within minutes, walk by the sea, enter the forest, or reach ski routes in winter. This closeness is not an unusual luxury here. It is an ordinary part of the Norwegian way of life. The pulse of the city beats along the waterfront of Aker Bryggen. In the early morning, fishermen and office workers drinking coffee share the same quay. The fjord shines under a light breeze. Boats glide slowly across the water, and the seagulls are in no hurry. The city's rhythm is slow, but that does not mean it is motionless. The streets are orderly, the squares are open, and public spaces are understated but functional. In Oslo, wealth is not hidden behind high walls. It appears in shared spaces that everyone can use. This gives the city a special feeling, a quiet and honest calm. The world's largest sovereign wealth fund is managed from here. Norway's government pension fund Global owns around 1.5% of shares in listed companies worldwide. But numbers this large are not felt in daily life in the way you might expect. Here, there is no showiness. There is modesty. Schools work. Hospitals are open. Transport is reliable. Wealth works silently in the background. Norway's past and future stand side by side on the shore of the same fjord. On one side, Akershus Fortress carries the legacy of stone and history. On the other, the Oslo Opera House invites the city with glass, marble surfaces, and a roof open to everyone. Oslo simply stands there. However, if you look carefully, you begin to see its character. The memory of stone. When you first see Akershus Fortress, it may not overwhelm you. But this mass of stone standing beside the fjord has a story. It was built in the late 13th century by a small and vulnerable kingdom trying to survive. Stones were placed one upon another. Heavy, hard, simple stones formed thick walls. When you walk along the fortress walls, the view opens before you. Ships drifting across the fjord on one side, modern Oslo on the other. Today, Akershus is a museum and a monument. The stones are still the same stones from centuries ago. The Oslo Opera House is a remarkable cultural landmark that belongs to the public. Directly across from the fortress, it leans toward the surface of the water, like a white block of ice rising from the fjord. Marble, glass, and curved lines. And on its roof, people. Yes, you heard that correctly. People walk on the roof, sit there, sunbathe, and children run across it. In many parts of the world, opera houses can feel distant from the public. Staircases, doors, tickets. But here, the roof is open to everyone. You do not need to buy a ticket. You simply climb. And there it is, one of the best views of the city. The idea behind this is clear. Collective investment should mean collective access. In Norway, culture is not only for elites, it is for everyone. Some opera houses are extremely expensive to build. But when you step onto this roof, you understand that the cost was not used to keep people outside. It was used to invite them in. The origin of flight. Holmenkollen rises in the background of Oslo, right where the forests begin, home to one of the oldest ski-jumping towers in the world. For Norwegians, skiing is not just a sport. It is part of their identity. Rock carvings dating back thousands of years prove this. Long before modern Olympic Games, people moved across ice using wooden boards as a means of survival. The tower, built from glass and steel, stretches into the sky with a functional design. When you reach the top, Oslo lies below, small and quiet. And right at the edge of the city, the forests begin. Just a few steps separate urban life from nature. Next to a modern structure, you might see a herd of deer walking through the morning mist. What feels ordinary to locals can be surprising for visitors. This is one of those typical Norwegian scenes. To truly understand this country, we must go beyond the cities, into the depths of its fjords, where some of the most breathtaking landscapes unfold. The father of fjords. Sognefjord is the longest and deepest fjord in Norway. Stretching over 200 kilometers and reaching depths of up to 1,300 meters, it cuts deep into the land like a vast natural corridor. But beyond the geography, there is something else. The feeling it leaves behind. The truth is simple. When you first see Sognefjord, you fall silent. Even your reaction seems to pause. On both sides, steep cliffs rise sharply, reaching heights of up to 1,700 meters. The color of the water shifts dramatically, from green to deep blue and almost to black. The surface is mirror-like. The mountains reflect so perfectly that it becomes difficult to distinguish reality from reflection. A landscape that feels both picturesque and cinematic. One of the most remarkable natural wonders you can witness. How did Sognefjord form? During the last ice age, massive glaciers advanced across the land, carving through hard rock as they moved, then retreating. Seawater filled the spaces left behind. The result is a corridor shaped by nature itself. Along the shores of Sognefjord and its branches, small villages like Balestrand and Flåm come alive in spring. Apple trees bloom at the base of snow-covered mountains, like bursts of white across the landscape. Behind this beauty lies a quiet truth. Mineral-rich meltwater from glaciers settles into small valleys along the fjord, creating fertile conditions for agriculture. These lands may appear harsh and unforgiving, but they are surprisingly productive. Orchards between ice and spring. In one place, snow melts. In another, flowers bloom. Hardangerfjord is where these two worlds exist at the same time. Often called Norway's garden, this fjord marks a geographical transition from steep cliffs to wider valleys. Slopes soften, the ground opens up. Instead of falling sharply, water spreads and flows more gently. Within this narrow corridor, in the few hundred meters of flat land allowed by the glaciers, farmers have built orchards. If you visit in May, you can see snow on the mountain peaks and a sea of pink blossoms below. Two seasons in a single frame. A truly breathtaking landscape, the cold of ice above, the warmth of spring below. This contrast also reflects how generations of farmers learned to use the short growing window created by altitude and the fjord's microclimate. Here, apples grow slowly. Short summers, followed by long nights and cold mornings, challenge the fruit. But this difficulty gives them a deeper, more intense flavor. Norwegians often say this not only about apples, but about many things in life. The sound of gravity. You hear it from a distance. A deep, continuous roar rising from within the valley. This is Vøringsfossen. The sound comes from meltwater gathered on the Hardangerfjord plateau, plunging down a drop of nearly 180 meters. The waterfall narrows into a channel. The rocks appear black from constant moisture. The water falls from such a height that it creates a mist, and the canyon disappears into it. At times, a rainbow forms within the spray. A modern bridge spans the valley. Simple in design, built for both crossing and pausing to take in the view. But in truth, the bridge is secondary. The main stage belongs to the water. In spring, as glaciers melt, the water reaches its peak. Pushing through the channel with force, by late summer it thins, revealing the rocks beneath. Yet the dance between water and gravity never stops. A World Heritage Corridor. Some places impress with their vastness. Nærøyfjord does the opposite. It captivates with its narrowness. Recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it is one of the most distinctive fjords in the world. At its narrowest point, the distance between the two sides shrinks to just 250 meters. Step slightly to the right, and you are beside rock. Step to the left, and you are in its shadow. Look upward, and the sky transforms into a river flowing between mountains that rise over 1,500 meters high. The reason for this extreme narrowness lies in geology. The glacier encountered unusually hard rock in this area. Unable to expand sideways, it continued to carve downward over centuries. The result? A deep, narrow, almost enclosed corridor shaped by vertical erosion. Nærøyfjord waits patiently for travelers, for those seeking hidden wonders of the world. The Cathedral of Stone. When people think of Norway's fjords, the image that often comes to mind is Geirangerfjord, and for good reason. As you enter the fjord, it feels as though you are stepping into a vast cathedral shaped by nature itself. Towering vertical walls surround you. The cliffs are so smooth and so high that they seem carved by human hands. Yet, glaciers formed them over millions of years. The depth here is striking. In some places, it exceeds 250 meters below the surface, nearly twice the height of the Eiffel Tower, hidden beneath the water. Along the steep slopes, you can see small farm buildings perched on narrow terraces. Because they appear to hang from the mountainside, they are often called eagle's nest farms. Reaching them once required ladders and ropes. For centuries, people lived here, raising animals, growing crops, using every small piece of land without waste. Today, many of these farms are abandoned. But they have not disappeared. They remain, quietly clinging to the stone walls of the fjord, part of a timeless landscape. The water of legend. From the slopes of Geirangerfjord, you count them. 1, 2, 3, 7. 7 separate streams of water descend from the cliffs, fed by melting snow. Each follows its own path. None merges with the other. Like snowflakes falling from the sky, they move together, yet remain separate. This is the Seven Sisters Waterfall. In Norwegian legend, there is a story behind it. It is said that 7 sisters were dancing on the mountain when a suitor on the opposite side fell in love with one of them. The sisters refused him. So deeply affected, the suitor turned to stone, forever watching them from across the fjord as a bottle-shaped rock. That is the legend. But the reality is this. In spring, the waterfall flows with full force, powerful and loud. By late summer, it becomes thinner and thinner. In autumn, it grows stronger again. At different times of the day, depending on the angle of the sunlight, the 7 streams disappear into the mist and reappear once more. The more we watch and listen to the fjords, the more they draw us in. We have seen only part of the story. The rest is still hidden in the mountains, beneath the ice, and inside the silence. The geometric rock platform, the trail to Preikestolen, is not flat. Stones shift beneath your feet. The ground rises and falls. You need to control your breathing. At some point, the trees disappear. Only rock remains, a gray sky and wind. The hike continues for hours. There is no clear sign telling you that you are close. Then suddenly, it appears before you. Preikestolen. A flat, wide, almost geometric rock platform around 600 meters above Lofoten. The rock stands exactly as it formed millions of years ago, unchanged, undecorated, untouched. This platform is the result of glacial pressure. During the last ice age, thick sheets of ice entered the horizontal cracks in the rock. They froze, expanded, and broke away large sections, revealing the flat surface we see today. It is as if nature became a sculptor, using ice as its tool, and leaving this platform behind as its work. When you approach the edge, the fjord below appears incredibly small. The mountains on the opposite side look misty and calm. Preikestolen reminds you of scale. Visitors take in the view, then return. The Trolltunga. Travel lovers know this well. Some landscapes require a long journey on foot. Trolltunga is one of them. The route can take around 12 hours. The trail crosses an open plateau with rocky ground, rust-colored grass, and snow in places. For hours, the scenery barely changes, as if the landscape were designed not for walking, but for drifting through. Then, at one point, Trolltunga appears. The rock stretches horizontally outward from the mountain, with no support beneath it. Hundreds of meters below, Ringadalsvatnet Lake shines turquoise and calm. What you see today is the shared work of rock, pressure, and thousands of years. When you stand at the edge of the platform, it feels as though empty space is beneath you. Here, in front of the vastness of nature, you're left alone with yourself. The suspended stone. The route to Kjerag is a climb where you need your hands as much as your feet. When you reach the summit, nearly 1,000 meters above Lofoten, you see a stone trapped between two rock walls, almost spherical in shape, with empty space beneath it. This block is known as Kjeragbolten. Every year, thousands of people step onto that stone. They take a photograph, then they return. But the stone and the fjord remain still. For the human body, Kjeragbolten is a test. For the mind, it is a place of reset. Faith without nails. In Norway's interior, in a village between steep mountains, stands a small black structure, Borgund Stave Church. It is believed to have been built in the late 12th century. No metal nails were used. It was constructed only with traditional wooden joining techniques. The carpenters of the Viking Age understood wood deeply. They knew how it swelled in moisture, how it contracted in frost, and how it bent under weight. Using this knowledge, they found a different method: braces, wooden pegs, and interlocking joints. The structure breathed with the seasons. It expanded, contracted, and endured. The pine trees used in construction had grown slowly because of long winters and short summers. Slow-growing wood is dense and strongly resistant to outside conditions. The surface was coated with tar, creating a protective layer that darkened the building and helped it resist rain. Dragon heads rise along the roof lines. These figures, rooted in Norse mythology, were placed as protectors against unseen forces. Christianity had arrived, but it did not erase the past. The church held both together, the new faith and the old heritage, beneath the same roof. Inside, the atmosphere feels like a forest, enclosed, cool, and silent. Little light enters. The walls are thick and the openings are narrow. Today, Borgund Stave Church is not only a place of faith, it is also proof of human intelligence in working with materials. To stand for more than 8 centuries without nails. 11 hairpin turns. Trollstigen, known as the Troll's Ladder, is a mountain road carved into a steep slope made up of 11 sharp bends. Construction began in the early 20th century, shaped by intense effort and human determination. Waterfalls flow between the curves. During the snowmelt season, water can run directly over the asphalt. The road is open only part of the year. When winter conditions close it, there is no alternative route. You either wait or turn back. From the highest point, when you look down, the bends below seem to fold into each other. The vehicles appear small, almost insignificant. From this perspective, you begin to understand how narrow the road is and how carefully it was built. Maintenance here is constant. Shifting ground, falling rocks from the slopes, cracked asphalt. At the end of each season, the damage is repaired. The road across the sea. Imagine a road stretching across the open ocean. The Atlantic Road is exactly that. A series of bridges connects small islands, running close to sea level, in direct contact with the ocean. Its total length is just over 8 kilometers. With every kilometer, you feel the presence of the Atlantic. The Storsøysundet Bridge is its most striking point. It rises in a curve, then descends. From certain angles, it looks as if the road simply ends. This is an optical illusion, a perspective shaped by height and design. Construction began in the 1980s. Storms frequently interrupted the work. Despite every challenge, the road was designed and completed to withstand these conditions. During storms, waves sometimes crash over the bridge. The road is temporarily closed. With no alternative, you wait until conditions improve. Norwegians are used to this. Sometimes, you move forward only as much as nature allows. A line through the mountain. Railways usually take you from one place to another. The Flåm Railway feels like a passage into another world. Over a distance of 20 kilometers, the line climbs 865 meters. It is considered one of the steepest standard gauge railway lines in the world. There are 20 tunnels along the route. Some are carved directly into the rock. Others curve alongside waterfalls. As you descend from Myrdal to Flåm, the view from the window reveals steep valleys, forested slopes, and waterfalls that suddenly appear before you. These breathtaking landscapes would be difficult to experience without this railway. At Vøringsfossen waterfall, the train stops. Passengers step out and watch as water cascades down the rock face. Mist fills the air. After a short pause in this remarkable setting, the journey continues. Once built purely as a means of transport, the Flåm Railway has become something more. A route where the journey itself is the experience, both functional and visually unforgettable. The city of Reine, the wood of history. In Bergen, rain is not just weather. It feels like a climate of its own. The city receives rain on more than 200 days each year. Moist air moves in from the western Norwegian coast, crosses the mountains, and gathers above Bergen before descending. It has shaped much of what you see here. Bryggen is a row of wooden warehouses lining the harbor. From the Middle Ages to the 18th century, this waterfront was under the influence of the Hanseatic League, one of the northernmost links in Europe's trade network. Dried cod and herring were stored here, preserved and packed, using the drying effect of the Scandinavian cold, then loaded onto ships. These fish traveled as far as the Mediterranean, to Spain and Portugal. Because of this, Bergen was never just a small port. It was a transfer point within a global system. Today, the buildings lean slightly, shaped by the weight of time. Painted in bright shades of orange, yellow, and red, they stand along the quay. The constant rain polishes the stone surfaces. Fishing boats come and go. In Bergen, the sea remains at the center of life. What we have seen so far is only the beginning of Norway. The places ahead will help us understand even more clearly why this country feels so unique. As the plane descends, you look out the window and see a landscape that feels like a painting. The Lofoten Islands stretch from the Norwegian coast into the Norwegian Sea, rising like granite teeth, sharp and vertical. Mountains rise directly from the sea. The beach ends, the rocks begin. The rocks end, the peaks rise. And on this rugged terrain, red wooden fishing cabins stand against the landscape. The village of Reine is one of the most photographed places in Lofoten. Small and compact, it sits at the base of the mountains, built on platforms above the water. The red cabins, known as rorbuer, define the scene. The red paint was originally chosen because it was inexpensive, a mixture of ochre and fish oil that also helped protect the wood. On foggy and snowy days, a red cabin could guide fishermen back to the harbor from a distance. Hamnøy is the quieter part of this picture. The village is small. The houses stand close together. The harbor is lined with stone. In winter, drying racks begin to fill with fish. These wooden structures, called hjell, are an essential part of Lofoten's silhouette. Throughout the season, cod is split in half and hung on these racks, left to dry in the Arctic wind and cold. There is no salt, no artificial heat, only air, light, and time. The result is stockfish, known as stoccafisso in Italy and bacalhau in Portugal. For centuries, it has been a key ingredient in Mediterranean cuisine. Portuguese recipes transform it in many ways. Italians prepare traditional dishes from it. Each piece carries the influence of the Lofoten wind. These islands, far away and shaped by cold, have provided a resource to the world for centuries, and still do. In winter, the days grow shorter and shorter and shorter, until the sun no longer rises. Polar night, weeks of darkness. And yet, in the sky, another light begins to appear. The field on stone. If you travel deeper into Lofoten, you reach Henningsvær, a small fishing village where several tiny islands are connected by bridges. The houses sit directly on the rocks. There are no gardens, no wide open spaces. Everything is compact because land is limited and the sea surrounds every side. And in this limited space, there is something unexpected: a football field. Henningsvær Stadium is known as one of the most unusual sports facilities in the world. There are no grandstands. The lighting is minimal. The field was built directly on rocky ground, surrounded by open water and granite. There are no walls to stop the wind. The story of how it was built is just as interesting as the field itself. There was no flat land in the village, but children needed a level place to play. So the community made a decision together. They flattened the rock and drew the lines. In Norwegian, there is a word, dugnad. It means shared voluntary work for the community, hammering nails, painting, carrying stones. No payment, no expectation. The Henningsvær football field is that word expressed on stone. Fishing boats pass beside the pitch. The wind changes the direction of the ball, but the game continues. The city of the Arctic Circle, a city 350 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. Tromsø grew by adapting itself to the conditions imposed by the climate. In winter, the sun does not appear, and the polar night lasts for weeks. In summer, the opposite happens. The sun refuses to set. At midnight, curtains are closed because outside it is still bright. The people who live here have adapted to the rhythm of this cycle of light and darkness. Sleep, daily routines, eating habits. Everything is reorganized according to the season. Norwegians do not see this as strange. They accept it as reality and live accordingly. In winter, during the darkness of the polar night, the sky turns green. Aurora Borealis, the northern lights, a breathtaking sight. Charged particles released by the sun interact with Earth's magnetic field. In the upper layers of the atmosphere near the polar regions, this interaction creates a visible release of energy. At first, it appears as a faint arc. Then it grows. It widens into bands and begins to change color. Green dominates, sometimes purple, sometimes a white shimmer. These lights flow across the sky like a river, moving with their own rhythm. Tromsø is an ideal location for this natural wonder, positioned beneath the magnetic zone known as the auroral oval. On clear nights, when you leave the city behind, the lights become easier to see. Visitors take countless photographs. Sometimes they simply stand and watch. During the same winter months, there is another movement in the fjords around Tromsø, orcas. Every winter, schools of herring enter these waters. Warm North Atlantic currents help keep the sea from freezing, and the fish gather here because of it. Orcas follow this migration year after year, as they have for centuries. They rise to the surface, appear for a moment, then disappear again. The moment does not last long. The orcas pass, and the school of fish scatters. But that passage, that enormous presence swimming beside you, stays in the memory. Some controlled tours, under suitable conditions, offer the chance to observe orcas from the sea. You enter the water in diving gear. The cold is felt immediately. Then, a few meters away, a black and white giant appears. Tromsø is also known for the Arctic Cathedral. Inside, its mosaics reflect daylight and cast colorful patterns across the walls. The last point on the map. You reach this place by plane, and when you step out of the aircraft, the first thing you feel is silence. Svalbard, an archipelago belonging to Norway, located around 1,300 kilometers from the North Pole. Here, the rules are different. Longyearbyen is one of the northernmost permanent settlements in the world. A few thousand people live here. There are shops, a university, restaurants. But once you leave the boundaries of the town, you must be very careful, because out there live the true residents of this island, polar bears. Polar bears are a daily reality here. They walk across the ice and roam along the coast. They do not recognize the boundaries drawn by humans. And they do not have to. Researchers, hikers, photographers, everyone here plans around this reality. Every step is taken with it in mind. There is another remarkable story on this island. It is carved into a mountain, deep inside frozen ground. And within it, more than 1 million seed samples from every corner of the world are stored. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault. Yes, this facility is like an insurance policy for agricultural biodiversity. Backups from gene banks around the world are kept here. In the event of flooding, conflict, climate change, power failure, or any major crisis, humanity's agricultural heritage is protected inside this vault. Permafrost provides a natural source of cold support, while the seeds are also kept under controlled cooling for long-term preservation. The vault is usually closed. It opens only for seed deposits or withdrawals. You cannot help wondering what lies inside. The results of thousands of years of cultivation, lost varieties, forgotten flavors, and countless forms of life. Wheat, tomatoes, rice. The seeds are small, but the information they carry is enormous. In Svalbard, sunset feels different. The sun stays low for hours, never quite disappearing. Its horizontal light paints everything orange: ice, rock, snow, and water. Norway. We began at the waterfront of Oslo. From the stone walls of Akershus to the roof of the opera house, we saw the architecture of nature inside the fjords. In the depth of Sognefjord, we felt small. In Hardangerfjord, we learned that ice and spring can exist at the same time. At Vøringsfossen, the sound of gravity silenced us. In the narrow corridor of Nærøyfjord, we were left alone with the scale of the landscape. At Trollstigen, the mountain gave us a road. At Borgund, we saw a wooden structure that has stood for more than 8 centuries without nails. From the Atlantic Road to the Rains of Bergen, from the granite teeth of Lofoten to the red cabins shaped by fishing history, we learned why those cabins are red. In Henningsvær, we saw how people built a football field on stone. In Tromsø, when the sky turned green, words were not enough before the northern lights. And in Svalbard, at the last point on the map, we understood that humanity stores its future in seeds. What is Norway? It is the ability to endure for 800 years without driving a nail into a beam. It is a narrow railway line passing through a mountain. It is knowing that rain will come almost every day and still protecting the wood. It is keeping the seeds of the future safe, even in the darkness of the Arctic. Norway is an extraordinary place. Sometimes, the end of one journey becomes the beginning of another. There are other lands, other stories, and they are all waiting. If this journey helped you not only see and hear Norway, but also feel it, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Because here on True Explorations, we will continue discovering the landscapes, cultures, and stories hidden in other corners of the world.